In music, we communicate the duration of sound through written symbols called notes. There are three basic parts to a note: the note head, the stem, and the flag. We are able to alter the duration of a note by changing any of its three parts. In this lesson, we are going to look at 5 different types of note durations. The first is called the whole note. It has no flag and no stem. The whole note is the note of longest duration. The exact amount of time a whole note is played for is determined by various factors which we will learn about in the coming lessons. In this lesson, we are only concerned with the relative duration. That is, the duration of one note compared to the duration of another note. The next 4 notes derive their names from their relation to the whole note. The following note is called a half note. It has a note head and a stem. It is called a half note because it is half the duration of a whole note. Because of this fact, the duration of 2 half notes is equal to the duration of 1 whole note. The blue lines in the diagram represent time. The next note we are going to look at is called the quarter note. A quarter note has a note head which is colored in and a stem. It is called a quarter note because it is 1/4 the duration of a whole note. Because of this fact, the duration of 4 quarter notes is equal to the duration of 1 whole note. The following note is called an eighth note. An eighth note has a note head which is colored in, a stem, and a flag. It is called an eighth note because it is 1/8 the duration of a whole note. Because of this fact, the duration of 8 eighth notes is equal to the duration of 1 whole note. The final note we are going to look at in this lesson is called the 16th note. A 16th note has a note head which is colored in, a stem, and 2 flags. It is called a 16th note because it is 1/16 the duration of a whole note. Because of this fact, the duration of 16 16th notes is equal to the duration of 1 whole note. As you have probably already noticed, each time a flag is added to a note, the duration of the note is shortened by 1/2. Eighth notes have 1 flag, 16th notes have 2 flags, 32nd notes would have 3 flags, and so forth and so on. Very often in music, notes with flags are grouped together. When this happens, the flags are replaced with beams. For example, 2 eighth notes that are grouped together would be joined with a beam like this. 4 16th notes that are grouped together would be joined with 2 beams like this. Here is a chart of the note durations learned in this lesson. It is very important that you recognize the mathematical proportions between the notes. Notice how each type of note is half the duration of the note above it. For example, a 16th note is half of an eighth note. An eighth note is half of a quarter note. A quarter note is half of a half note. A half note is half of a whole note. Be sure to study the chart thoroughly before taking the lesson quiz. A good idea would be to take one duration at a time and observe how many notes of that duration it takes to equal each of the other durations. Don't forget to study the lesson memory questions found under the Downloadable Materials tab on the right side of your screen.